Hey, welcome back to Jamieson's Repair Shop. A little winded, I was just out shoveling snow. That's right, she's snowing here in Saskatchewan. Anyway, it's okay, it's all good. Though it would be a nice day to be in a place like Key West or, I don't know, somewhere in Arizona, maybe on a beach in Mexico, who knows. Some place will be better than here today, I think. Anyway, enough grumbling and complaining about the weather. We're back on the old Thunderbird here, the convertible, the 65 convertible. We left off with doing the bottom of the torque box, right front torque box. So that was all 14 gauge, and now we're into the 18 gauge stuff. So if you're rebuilding one of these cars and you don't have anything to go by, there's a couple of layers of metal that you have to pay attention to if you want it to be the way it was from the factory. So I'm going to pull you off the tripod and we'll go down and I'll talk about what has to happen there. And there's a little bit of an order to it. It can be worked around no matter how you do it, as long as you understand that there is an order to it. All right, inside, and I realized from the time I did the intro and I got in here, I realized I hadn't seam sealed it yet. So I went around it with some seam sealer. All the welds the welds I made to put this piece in. The welds I made making this piece were double checked. They were welded on both sides and they were checked with light, so there's no holes, so I'm not worried about them. But the areas that I can't get to the backside, I seam sealed the whole thing. And I use this seam sealer here. I quite like it. It's a brush-on seam sealer by Dominion Sure Seal Limited. It goes on really nice. It's creamy, and it brushes on really easy. Once you get it on, don't monkey with it because it tacks up fairly quickly. It'll skin over quick, and you'll make a mess of it. Well, it doesn't look that pretty, but it is very similar to what was on these cars from the factory, brushed on. Anyway, enough about the seam sealer, putting it on rather. One thing I will say about this stuff, and probably most seam sealers similar to this, is this is not the only company that makes this kind of product, is that if you're going to do any welding around it, make sure you let it dry quite a bit, like dry for a bit, because it off-gases flammables. I think it's got acetone and there's a few other chemicals in it that are quite flammable, so just be careful around it. If you're even after an hour or so, like I tried spot welding through it before, and you can spot weld through it with a spot welder. It just said it will catch on fire on you, so just be careful of that. So try not to put it any place that you're going to be doing any welding. So I did get a little close here, but I think it'll be fine. It's just the skin of it, and it's fine over here. And once I'm done welding this all in, I'll put more on the whole weld because I can't get behind it to check. So anyway, let's get on to what I was talking about with the metal layers. So this transmission tunnel is actually the floor panel as well. So it comes in all one piece, and it only comes, when it's put in, it comes right up within 1/8 of an inch, approximately 1/8 of an inch of the 14 gauge torque box, the lower part of the torque box. So the floor pan is not welded to the torque box on the bottom. It's only welded up here. So there's a seam, a pinch weld that goes through here. What's left here is part of the torque box upper enclosure, which is part of the the firewall. I call it the firewall extension, this piece down that comes out. So that's what I'll be calling it. So anybody that wants to know what this line is for, this line is where, when I add the 90-degree pieces to extend these supports down, that's where they'll come. So I still have to make two 90s to put in there, and then there's a 1-inch flange on them on the front, and then on the bottoms there's a 1-inch flange, and they point towards each other, and they have to be welded in. I'm not going to worry too much about the back on them. I'm going to put a piece of metal in there, and the flange will go all the way back, but I'm not going to try to flange the back. But these braces, I'm pretty sure you want to have them fixed up pretty decent, because if this is a lifting pad is right around here. So if you start lifting on this and there's no braces, it could push this floor up. So if you're doing this, you'll want to make sure that you replace that rotted out metal if yours is like that, if you may be lucky and don't have to do that. Anyway, so let's get back to the layers of metal. So we had the floor pan put in over top of the frame rail and all the way and underneath the inner frame rail over here. So that's how the floor pan goes in. And then this firewall goes down, like I said, to this line, and then it bends and comes flat out right to about this notch, right about here. And that's on top of the floor pan. So what you'll have this piece here, a head, and the floor pan will come right almost to it. And then this will come over top of the floor pan. So if you're doing this, don't get ahead of yourself and spot weld or plug weld the frame rail to this section up here. You have to make sure you get this put in first. I'm not going to do the floor pan just yet because I want to get these torque boxes done all the way around the car. Because the plan is to get this car on a rotisserie, and I want it as stiff as I can before I do that. And so what I'm going to have to do is I can plug weld the firewall extension to the 14 gauge, but I can't plug weld it to here until I get the floor pan in. It's not a big deal to that, but if you're not familiar with how it looks and there's nothing left to look at, that's how it goes. So there's the 3 layers of metal, and 4 including this one here, the frame rail extension. All right, so now we got that all said, what needs to be done there, the layers and how they're put in the car. And now I have to go ahead and start filling. I'll put a little piece in there, fill that in. And I still have parts from this section right here that I'm going to see if I can reuse as much of them as I can, the original pieces. I'm quite sure a lot of this was still pretty decent because some of it has, it's B-rolled. It has a bead in it. And I think that's where they went. Anyway, it doesn't matter. There's some beads in there. And I'll find the pieces and I'll show you. And if they're no good, if I can't use them, I can't even remember what, hold on, just way over here, see if we have them close in hand. No. Oh, it's pretty rough. Yeah, so there's the beads that I was telling you about right there. But there's not much left of it. I think that one went in there like this. On top of my can, so it went in there like this. No, there's not much. I think we're going to be building new ones. Yeah. Oh yeah, here's the other piece here. Another one of the pieces right here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so that's kind of what it looks like. Yeah, so I've got a lot of parts missing. I think I saved this for a reason. I saved it for the beads, and I saved it for this pattern for this access hole. That's why I have that saved. I was thinking I had saved them because I was going to reuse them, but no. They're gone. I might as well replace the whole thing. All right, so I'm going to have to get a piece of steel cut out off my new sheets. And see what we can do. Yeah, looks like there's going to be a bit of bead rolling in this video too. Because I'd like to have this put back in. Not that it matters too much because this will be covered. I don't know if you remembered how this all went. These had covers on them. There, right there. See, that's the imprint of that. So this had a cover over there, just a flat piece of tin, steel. What was this? Oh, and this had another layer here too. Yeah, there were a lot of layers on this guy. That went like this, up like that. That's how it went, like this. So there's the firewall piece. and then there was a plate that went over it with just a hole in it to match this hole. I'm trying to get my bearings back. It's been a long time since I worked on this. And then this one over top of that. That's it. So there's more layers. So there's a fair bit of work to do in this area. I mean, these aren't difficult to make, this one. It's just a flat piece of steel with a hole cut in it. This one's just a flat piece of steel, rectangular shape. That's it. And that's why I saved them. I'm glad I didn't throw them out. All right, well, talking a lot about it, not getting anything done, so let's go at her. All right, there's one of the bracket lower ends made. It's not welded in, not welded up. Need to put some plug weld holes along the bottom on it. I need to fill those plug weld holes up. Anyway, she's not 100% perfect, but I did put the flange on. The other side doesn't have that, so it'll just be a straight piece with a 90 on it. And that's it. So I'll put some plug weld holes in it, weld this up here. And then I'm going to make the other one, because I still have a little bit more room to work here. If I leave this out, I'll do this one first. I'll weld this one in first over here, rather. All right, better get at her. That's it. The braces have been fixed, welded in, put a little red oxide primer on them now, and then tomorrow I'll let it dry overnight, and then tomorrow I'll tackle the fill-in panel there. All right, let's get her done. There she is, got her primed up again. I gave the whole thing another coat, slathered it on there. I think that'll do it. I think that's more than it was on it when it was new. So I went ahead and had some black chassis paint, truck chassis paint. So I figured, well, this is an opportunity to give it a good coating. I know this will outlive me for sure. But yeah, I just went ahead and painted it. Makes it one more layer of protection. So now I'm going to go ahead and make a template for this piece. All right, back at the torque box. Now this is the upper part of the torque box, as you can see, and I've taken a piece of masking paper. It's just 3M stuff, readily available anywhere, making myself a little template. So I took a little bit of dirt off of here and I rubbed the lines out so I could see them, marked the braces like that. Then I took a piece of 18 gauge, because that's how thick this will be. I put it down right at the toe of those braces, and then I measured out 2 3/4 inches, because that's what that is. I went out to the hard top and I measured that one. It's so nice having a car to get reference off of. But it's 2 3/4 inches from the metal, like from here out. So you have to include, if you don't have the metal and you're measuring, you have to include the 18 gauge metal. So it's going to be a little longer. But what it does, it comes to, like where I said before, there's a notch in the frame rail. That's where it comes to. So right there. So that's also another reference point. Right to that notch in the frame rail. There's another notch back further. There's not really a notch. Yeah, there's a bit of a notch here. But this is the notch that you need to be concerned about. That's where this firewall extension comes down to for the foot panel area. And then I just went around it. So now I have my template. I marked these off because I'm going to align up these old pieces to get those marked off as well. For a simple panel, there's quite a bit going on here, because we also have right there is where the bead starts. Anyway, got a piece of steel cut out, ready to go. So once I get this template marked off really nice, I'm going to lay it all out see what we can do, go from there. Another reference point I put in from the bottom of the torque box plate, that 14 gauge, back to the brace is 1 inch. So we have a 1 inch area that you spot weld to or plug weld to. And that's all I'll be going as far as plug welding, because I need to leave this open enough so I can slide in the floor panel underneath. Anyhow, let me get her out of there and we'll see if we can get it laid out on a piece of steel. There, I got her laid out. Made a boo-boo there. This does not need a flange because this went over top of the frame rails, and there's a flange already there. So the flange will have to be out here. I may just weld the flange on once I start fitting it. And that's it. She's laid out. Now I'm going to get the holes put in, marked off, and then there needs to be some bead rolling done there. Alright, I got her laid out. Now I'm just laying out this piece. This is for that hole that was in the torque box between the braces. So I took the old piece. Thankfully I hung on to it. So that's like that. And now, because it's got a bead roll, a step in it rather, not a bead but a step, and there was a piece on top of that again, like this, and it was the size of that hole roughly. It got bent out a little bit there. But since I have this as a template, and then I just went over top of this again, like so, and traced it on there. So now I know I have my bead, or keep saying bead roll line, step line right there. So I'll step this down, and then after that's all done, I'll cut this out. Now I have to lay out for the beads, so I have to get that piece and see where the beads were. Alright, I got it laid out oversized, and then I went ahead and I put some reference marks all the way around so I don't lose where I want it to be. Also, I had to cut out some of the little squares on the lines, just in places, just so I can align it again easily. And that's about it. Alright, now I've got this all cut out. That'll be the upper part of the step down, so the step down will happen inside there. It'll only be a small step down. It's only down, I think it's not even a 1/4 inch step. But anyway, I'll measure it. And then I cut out some spots for the beads, the start and stop points of the beads. So when I take this up, I can put a line on. And hopefully that's it. So I'll get the perimeter cut, and then I'll mark it all up. Okay, now I got the bead roller set up. I got I believe it's a 3/8 die on there, and I've got it touching the metal right now, so I haven't clamped it down. So there's top of the metal. We'll do 1 turn, 2 turns. I'm going to do 3. I'm going to try it at 3 turns down. And turn this slow. And I'm going to be running, this is the one that runs off the metal, so I'm going to run it right off the metal. And in reverse, it needs to go in reverse first. Actually, I'm going to run it forward just a tiny bit. Need a little faster. There, that's the end of it. Let's put her in reverse. See if we can get this relatively straight. There. There's one right there. We'll bring it all the way back up again. Put her in, and this time I'm going to come forward on it so I can see it better. Touching the metal, and then 1, 2, 3, and it's in forward. No, it's in reverse. Let's put it in forward. Make sure it's lined up. I'm going to actually back it up a tiny bit to get it squared off on the end. There. Now forward. Something seems to loosen my drive on my bead roller. Some of it's because I have it on wheels and it's rolling away on me. There. I think that's good enough for the beads. That'll go into the piece in the car. I'll just take and round these off with a tool, make them finish the ends. Now I'll get set up, we'll do this. Alright, I've got the joggle dies on. I'm going to try it with those. This is going to be a little bit lack of clearance on the throat of this. It's not that wide. And I have the bottom die on coming up on the line, so it's going to be a little bit slow going, so I have to watch it. So we're on top of the metal there. So that's one turn, 2 turns. I'll give it another half to see how it looks. I'll go full 3 turns. All right, let's try that. Remember, this is just, this is all going to be covered anyway. I'm just doing it because I want the experience doing the bead rolling. Because this will never be seen. But at some point a fellow will be doing a job where he wants it to look good, and the practice is always nice to have. Get around there, come around. Alright, that's her. I think that's going to be good enough for where it's going. Not perfect. I got a little off track there. But, like I say, this is going down inside, and this will be covered with a plate. So now I'm going to just do a little hammer and dolly and clean that up a bit. And then I'll cut that piece out. I'll retrace it because that's not the cut line. That's a piece I put in just as a guide. Sorry, this line's not the cut line. The cut line goes inside that again. All right, let me get on her. There she is. Not perfect, but I think it'll do for something that's going to be covered up. So now I'm going to take it over and brake it on the brake. About a 45 degree. It's not full 90, it's about a 45. Well, there she is. So now we're at the fitting and finishing. So there is the upper end of that bead. That's what I'm going to go for my alignment. So, and I can already see I overbent the flange just a little bit. That's fine. I can always bend that back down, but it needs some room here. Need to take a little bit off there. I'm not going to touch this side just yet. Try to get it so it settles down so this stays aligned. It's not too far, it just needs a little tiny bit. So, get my marker, wherever I did with it, I didn't bring it. Anyway. I'll start taking a little off about halfway up. I'll bring it out, bring it down, and we'll just play with it till we get it in place. Now it's fitting in nicer. So this needs a little bit of trimming. It all needs a bit of trimming around the outside edge. Needs a little bit of trimming here. But it's sitting down right in line with this, with that bead where it was, right there. I need to weld a flange on this side over here. I didn't bother trying to bend it because I knew this would be an issue, and it's very delicate from side to side and how you balance it out. So I just figured I would weld a flange on. That's a pretty simple job. I can get at it before I put it back in and grind the flange and weld both sides. But yeah, so I'm going to keep playing with it. And I'm going to mark off around the perimeter. I'm going to put a cleco in it. I'm going to drill a hole and put a cleco in it. Probably through the braces here. Because they'll be fixed and they'll never move. They'll always be where they're supposed to be. So I'll put a couple clecos, one on each side of this hole. And then I'll trace it all off and start taking some off here until I get it to fit. There it is, a couple of clecos. Now it'll always go back to the same place. So I think I can actually get up inside here and a lot of it and trim it, or mark it rather. That hole's come in handy for that. I don't think I'll be able to get all the way over here, but I can definitely mark it with a marker in here. There, she's all primed up. I have to put some plug weld holes in along the front near that brake, and of course some plug weld holes up in there, and then it'll be ready to go in. Alright, there she is, welded in. I left the bottom and the transmission tunnel side unwelded for now until I get over there to fix it. But she's spot welded in, loosely ground down. They're pretty ugly welds, but you'll never see that once I get the primer and a coat of seam sealer on it. Well, there it is, primed up. Once the primer's dry, I'll throw a seam sealer on it. And don't forget, for me not to forget, I have another panel here to make, to put on there. And there's actually a cover that goes over this, to cover the whole thing. This feels like a 20 gauge, so I might go with that. I've got lots of 20 gauge on hand. It's not as thick as the 18 for sure, so it must be 20. And the panel that goes over this feels very thin too. And then there's a piece that, well, this whole thing, it was one section, I believe. Yeah, it was one section that went right over. It went from one side to the other. And then there was that little panel on it. I'm quite sure how it went, but I'll look at the old videos and see. But that's it. That's the top of the torque box done. And I'm going to make a decision whether I continue on with the floor panel or move over to the other side. I'm not sure yet. But in the next video, I guess I'll be somewhere in it. Anyway, that's it for this video. Every part on the old car makes it a little stronger, and this was one, so makes it look better too. I left a little room down here so I can get that floor pan underneath. And then I didn't spot weld the along the foot of it there, but along the brake. So that's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.